Here's a little often used technique of mine, which I generally refer to as the soft hold. Often, of course, when animating stuff, things come to a point of rest and we need to have a little bit of follow through. Sometimes they'll come to rest, nice and smoothly and just stop, but much of the time, they don't. They need to have a little bit of follow through at the end. And, you can sort of try to key that in a very sort of fine way here to, manually push some follow through on the end of the action just as it comes to rest like this. That of course is at the expense of increasing your key density, and also you can sometimes find it a little tricky to get in there and just get the timings right and just nudge the exact amount properly. Something that I will often do is I will take, whatever this last frame is there, and without moving the item, I'll put another frame in, some number of frames later. It depends on the action and how fast it's happening and whatnot, just like this. And so you've just got these two keys that are of course equal and in the same spot. It means I've come to my exact resting position where I want something to be stopped. But I'll use spline interpolation across this area, you see, and so that of course gives you a little dodge over, and you just sort of get a bit of automatic follow through at the end of a motion there, like that helps things just have that little bob as they come to rest in this manner. You can always, of course, tweak the, timing and specifics of such things by then just playing with the curves in there, which will help, decide how strong or weak the follow through happens to be. Or perhaps you can use the bias as well to sort of underswing it like this, which of course gives you a bit of a softer landing there, something of an ease in and a slow in, but still with that, you see that tiny just little rest action there. It's incredibly subtle that I've got going on here, but it looks nice and natural considering the way that this thing is of course coming in to land. It's not completely slowing in, and it does have just that tiny subtle little movement on at the end, which you barely see, but which does help it look a bit more natural and not quite so robotic and of course computer generated. Clearly doing this stuff is a manual exercise, and it's whether you're doing it with the splines or you're setting keys manually, there's not an awful lot of difference. But I find that doing it this way, just at the rest point with a spline, is a nice, quick, easy way to create a soft landing follow through type effect on any number of motions. And you will see me use this an awful lot once we get into the projects and the animation examples. The other place I will often use it a little bit as well is when there is an actual hold somewhere within a motion. So for instance here, let's say I take this key at 25 and I just replicate it there at 30. Then obviously, he's holding at the top, travelling up to the top, holding before moving down. With just the default spline interpolation, he sort of does this little wobble about. You can of course see why this is. If we look at the Z channel there, it creates this, double hump, which is often, kind of bad looking, and it's sort of a signature of bad spline interpolation going on. As such, when I use a soft hold like this, I'll usually use it on one specific channel. So for instance, the Z here, in this instance, I'll probably bring both of those, right out flat like this, so as it is held completely flat. But here on the Y, where he's majorly travelling up, then I will often keep a little bit of that on there, and you can see of course here how he is currently rising up and just sort of doing that little overshoot just there. So again, it's a little bit of follow through like that. The other way that I may often swing this, and you'll see me certainly do this on various characters a lot, is I'll bias or weight the thing a certain way around. When something is coming to a rest or a hold like this, it's got its forces and its momentum that are trying to carry it forwards. That of course is why we get overlap and follow through, as we've discussed. But in characters and also vehicles or machines, you've got muscles or motors or brake pads or whatever that are, providing counter forces, trying to rein things back and pull them to a stop or whatnot. As such, what I'll often do is when you've got a hold like this, which is of course two frames, the inner and the outer, I'll take the outer frame and I'll tension that up completely so as that goes smoothly out. But then the incoming I will set, not quite to 1, maybe a 0.3, 0.5, 0.8, whatever. And the result of that, you see if we look at the Y channel here, is I get this little starter hump, but that's petering out by the end of the hold there. And I often find that this simple little key and curve pattern helps to sell the idea of something trying to break itself. Doesn't work so well here on the camera necessarily, because of course, it's sort of just this free floating object. But if this is something like an arm that's, coming to a rest as it's snapping out, or it's perhaps snapping and curling up, then having something like this that gives that snappy little tight follow through with an immediate breaking off and shallowing of the curve like this can often give that impression of, muscles or brakes or whatever else counteracting against something's momentum, its inertia, to try and, pull it back straight, keep it held and whatnot, whilst providing just a soft little bit of follow through still. Of course, here I'm using a TCB spline in this example, but you can use whichever spline type you're more comfortable with. But this little softened overhold does give you a nice handy little way to create nice smooth little tweaks to something's motion when you do just want to, tweak it out a little bit and get just a little softness into your hold so it doesn't look like it's stopping so completely rigidly, either at a midway point or of course when coming to rest.